I'm a werewolf, and I rarely return to human form. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I am a werewolf. Actually, I prefer the terms dogman or wolfman myself. I was originally a full-blooded human, but I'm not any longer. I live here in the woods of the Midwest, in a cabin with my dog Walter, who is also a werewolf. I had no choice but to make him one like me. He was gonna die if I didn't do that to save him. But I admit that I wouldn't have done it to him if I didn't have to. Becoming a werewolf is like dying and being reborn as something else. It's not something that's for most people, but for the very few of us like myself and my canine best friend here, this is the ultimate kind of existence. I'd like to send you some of my backstory, because I think it might interest you and your viewers a bit. I was exposed to your channel by a friend who came to visit me out here in the woods, and we both got a big laugh out of your shows. Some of them hit very close to the mark and seem real to me, while others are so far off they had to have been made up. My friend wants me to send you an email for you to make a show out of. I was originally against it, but he's letting me talk into his tape recorder, and he says he's going to type up everything I'm saying and send it to you after he gets home. I'm trusting him to get it right the first time, but if anything in here doesn't make sense, I blame Laszlo. Everything I'm about to say is the truth. I hope that's also true for Laszlo's translation of my words into print for you to read. So yes, I am a werewolf, and I've been so for much of my adult life. Laszlo wants me to write about how great it is, and to make it sound attractive. That would be immoral to do, though. This is not a life for most people, and I'll explain why. If you're drawn to living this way, you'll probably end up out in the woods anyhow, one way or another. But most people are social. They need to be around other people all the time. Just like cockroaches need to be around other cockroaches, you know? Some of us got raised by humans, trained by humans to know how to survive. And then we went off alone, and decided to be our own kind of person. Our own tribe. Our own species. I did not set out hoping or intending to be bitten by a werewolf, but it was my fate. I was primitive camping out in the woods one night, in my backpack with no tent under the stars. Although this experience is unlike any other, I can't recommend it to most people because it is dangerous. What happened to me should be an example of what I mean. I was set upon by a wolf in the night. It was a wolf far larger than I had ever seen. Far larger than is supposed to even exist. It tore me open and was drinking my blood. The creature intended to finish me off. It was eating me alive, and I could tell that it was ravenously hungry. We both heard a rifle shot nearby though, and the creature first looked up, then ran off, leaving me there on the ground stuck in my sleeping bag, unable to do anything but lie there bleeding out. I never did find out the source of that gunshot either. But that was no ordinary wolf that tried to eat me that night. Clearly I was attacked by a werewolf. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here to tell the story. If you're left for dead by a normal wolf, that's probably the end of you. But if you're lying there dying from wounds inflicted by a monster, then what happens is that the monster DNA gets into you through your wounds, see? It takes over your dying body. It keeps it alive. But I have to say, it's a new kind of alive. Some might even call it a living death. You see, there's something that almost everyone gets wrong about werewolves. We are a form of, vampire, I guess you might say? Or maybe we're a form of living dead, sort of a cousin to the vampires. We inflict our DNA on living humans, killing the original host, and replacing the dead parts with the living werewolf parts. Sorry, I'm not a microbiologist, so I'm kind of phrasing all this in poetic terms. But I mean it literally. At least, as literal as poetry can get. Now, once you are the living dead, you have a deep understanding of the natural world and reality that you just can't have while you're alive the way you normies are. Matter isn't really real, for one thing. And when you understand that, you can change your avatar like it's a GTA game. I mean, it makes total sense to me that I can be a man, a wolf, and a wolf man all at the same time. And so I do it. It's not something that makes sense to you, and that's why you can't do it. There are werewolves that are controlled by the moon and their hormones. They're either locked into the cycles of the moon, or their changes are rage-induced, like poor old Bill Bixby when he used to change into Lou Ferrigno. Most people never realize that it's something they can take conscious control over. I mean, maybe they can't all do it, but it occurred to me after my second or third transformation that I wanted greater control over it. I just had a feeling in my gut that this was more controllable. I think the meditation practice I had begun about half a year earlier opened my mind to things that allowed me to see potential in this situation that would have only been an affliction to most other people. For one thing, I was already renting a house in the woods before this happened. I was a 26-year-old hermit, according to my friends. Now, if you have friends, then clearly you're not a hermit. But I had moved away from all of them, and I had become a loner, and a survivalist as well. I got my house during the pandemic, and people didn't see it as so strange a thing to do at that time. Most people were isolating themselves in one way or another anyway. And back then, I think everyone just viewed this as a phase I was going through. Maybe it would have been. Maybe it was the bite of the werewolf that made it permanent. I have no way of really knowing. But I do know that it's permanent now. I know there's no going back. And it's going to take me a while to really fully explain to you why that is. I gotta tell the truth. I hardly ever even become human any longer. I mean, I spend a lot of time with hands and fingers and with conscious thought, but fully transforming back so that my fur recedes and my claws pull back in? Well, that doesn't happen too much any longer. The thing is, I don't have to change back while I sleep or in the morning. It is the normal instinct, and it's what I was doing for the first few months. I was waking up in human form in weird places. I was sleeping on top of a pile of coal in someone's basement one time. I was sleeping on top of a roof this other time. I would be cold and at least mostly naked, and I'd have to figure out how to get home without getting arrested for indecent exposure, or worse. It wasn't that much fun, to be honest. But that was in the early days, when all this really took me by storm, you might say. It was so unexpected. It was too much for me to process all at once. I remember feeling panicked about it, more frightened than I'd ever been about anything. But each time I changed into the wolf, I found myself growing more accustomed to it. I did have blackouts sometimes when I would fully become a wolf, as in a large four-legged beast without conscious thought. That was pure instinct, I assume, since I can't actually recall for sure. Now, I didn't like the blackouts, and so I stopped becoming the wolf fully. I found that I could arrest the process and become a dogman, a dog-headed man, a real-life werewolf. When I was in that form, I could think like a human when I needed to, which it turns out is really not all that often. It serves its purpose, but it's just as valuable to be able to turn it off sometimes and go with pure awareness, to be fully and completely alive. I was just beginning to learn that by practicing meditation as a human, but you can't know true Zen until you can get beyond human thought in the way a non-human can. I don't mean that all animals are Zen masters, because they are not, but I do think there are more Zen masters in nature than in cities. One of my old teachers used to say that codependency and other kinds of neuroses are the products of humans and civilization. But I have met neurotic animals in the woods, believe me. If you think civilization can be cool, go live in the woods for a year. No, there's mental illness in every direction. But there does tend to be less of it, in places where you can have some space between all the words. It's not a guarantee of inner peace. but it helps your chances a bit. Like if you want to hit a home run, you go to a baseball field first. It's easier to do it there than in your living room. At least usually. For me, the big change happened when I woke up screaming one morning in great pain. I was being attacked in my sleep by a big cat that had discovered me lying in some bushes naked one morning. That was the worst morning ever, believe me. This cat and I fought, and I discovered the meaning of the term tooth and nail. I had never been in a fight with a cat before. In fact, I hadn't even seen any big cats while a werewolf at that point, and I've only seen one more of these since then at a great distance. They do exist in the Midwest, although there aren't too many of them, and they hide out from people most of the time. This one seemed way too big to be possible as well. There was blood everywhere, and all of it was mine. I kinda got this weird feeling, almost like being insulted. This dumb cat thought I was just a human. It didn't even realize who I was. And so I showed it. I transformed as we fought, and the tide turned. Rather than tearing me open to drink my blood, the cat found itself losing the battle. It screamed like a woman and ran away before I even finished transforming. And I would have laughed if I could have. We dogs don't laugh. We leave that to the hyenas and the humans. But I did howl. I howled in triumph. I howled in defiance. I howled to declare myself alive. And so I stopped changing back very often. I remain in my werewolf form, living in harmony with the wilderness. I hunt. I run. I live. It's liberating. Of course, I do still change back into my human form from time to time. Old friends from my past come to visit, and they prefer to see the face they remember. I don't mind. It's a small price to pay for the company of those I care about. But when they leave, it's just me in the wilderness again. I shed my human skin, and I return to what I now consider my true form. The form that feels right. The form that feels like me. And so that's why I rarely change back into my human form at all anymore. It's not out of fear, or hatred, or any negative emotion. It's simply because, as a werewolf, I feel more at home in the wilderness than I ever did as a human. And isn't that what life is all about? Finding where you belong and embracing it, no matter what form it takes. Talking about feeling that this is where I belong, I am not actually all alone out here any longer. I have a friend named Walter who stays with me most of the time. Well, he's not really named Walter, he's a dog. I call him Walter, though. Walter the werewolf. That's correct, my dog is a werewolf, just the same as I am. He turns into a bigger werewolf than I can ever turn into as well. I tell him that I'm the brains and he's the brawn, but there have been a few times when the big guy has outsmarted me. I'm just lucky that he's on my side, that's all. I've known Walter since I used to call him Rex. He was just a dog in those days, though. I'm not sure what kind, he's probably a mixed breed. Tall ears like a German Shepherd, but his coloring is different and darker. Now, I met him when I was a werewolf one night. He had killed something, and he was eating it. As I approached, he naturally thought I was going to try to steal his food. So he snarled and attacked me. I could have snapped his neck like a twig, but I jumped up to a branch on a tree and I just watched him instead. Now, he didn't like that. He didn't want anyone looking at him while he ate. So Rex dragged that carcass off into the bushes to dine in privacy out of my view. It was in those bushes that he got overtaken by a snake that he woke up, and poor Rex got bitten. It looked to me like a cottonmouth snake, which isn't even supposed to live this far north. Cottonmouths are venomous, and their venom prevents your wounds from healing. So you can die from a cottonmouth bite. And so of course the dog can too. I did what I had to save that dog. I sucked as much of the venom out of him as I could and I spit it out on the ground. But then I did something that no human could have ever done for him. I drank that dog's blood. I allowed our DNA to mingle, and I turned him into one of the creatures like myself. Did I save his life? Well, in a sense, as he's sleeping right next to me as I write this. But this is not a normal life. So in another sense, I'm the one who killed old wild Rex, not that cottonmouth snake. This is why I gave him his new name, Walter. Walter the werewolf, my loyal friend and hunting companion. I nursed him back to health and beyond. He knows I'm the only reason he's alive and kicking. We're best friends, and we will always be best friends. About the only thing we're lacking out here is some women. But this is not a life for a modern woman at all. If someone is meant to be with me, then she'll just show up. But I don't believe in forcing things to happen. Honestly, Walter and I are pretty happy alone, even though it means neither of us is going to have a son to carry on after us. We don't have money, and modern women need a lot of that. I don't want money. I want to be alive. If there's one woman left in this world who also wants to truly be alive, then the good Lord will direct us to each other in good time. And if not, that's fine, because this is the happiest I've ever gotten a chance to be. I think Walter can say the same, as he seems content and never leaves my side for very long. Although we have plenty, we waste almost nothing. He and I eat meat, it's because we're omnivores. Humans and dogs get along because we both eat everything. We eat plants, animals, grains. We even take milk and curdle it into cheeses, and then we eat those too. We eat stuff that's good for us, and we eat McDonald's too. Let's face it, humans and dogs will shove anything into our mouths, and that's how God wants it. There are no vegan canines out in the woods. Vegetarianism is an artificial structure imposed over nature by the confused. It's not natural. It's not good for you. We know this as a fact by studying how the introduction of agriculture brought with it starvation and people became smaller in size. You can look this up. Humans were meant to forage and hunt, as it was in the Garden of Eden. And that's where we live, Walter and me. This is the Garden of Eden right here in the good old US of A. It's called the Woods of the Midwest. And it's God's land. Well, I think I've given my friend Laszlo enough to transcribe. This is probably going to take him a week to turn into some typing for you to read. I hope I haven't made my life sound too attractive to you. Remember that I left out all the hard work. I left out most of the sacrifices involved. I don't have much time to watch YouTube or anything like that. If you choose this kind of a lifestyle, you're going to work. You're going to get up before the sun, even though you were out hunting all night. And all your work is going to go directly into survival, not into your hobbies or your leisure time activities. Walter and I don't play video games about surviving in the woods. We're actually out there surviving in the woods. It's a lot more work to actually cut down a tree and saw it into pieces than it is to push some buttons and pretend to do it in a video game. 99.9% chance you'll run back to the city screaming and crying after 1 or 2 days out here. But if you're someone like me and Walter, then I expect I'll meet you one day out in the woods at night. And if we do, remember to respect your fellow predator. Steer clear of him and his prey, unless you want to become the next victim of me and my buddy right here. Please don't go forgetting that. I'm a werewolf, and I rarely return to human form. There is no one bigger or greater than him, of course I'm talking about Godzilla Tim. I've been working on an animated episode to honor Godzilla Tim, but it's taking forever to finish, since I have to keep stopping and making shorter episodes to fill the gap. I kinda wish I could afford to go all animation and just put out 1 or 2 shows a month like all the other animation channels, but that's a pipe dream at this point. So we're honoring Godzilla Tim tonight to thank him for supporting us so well and for so long. He truly is one of the most important people in the entire history of our channel, and we can never thank him enough. If you'd like to become as admired and thanked as the great Godzilla Tim Walker in the UK, then listen to some of these tips from our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.